As it has been revealed that the UAE attacked Iran, the Middle East is expected to be shaken once again. It is said that the UAE attacked Iran in early April. Let's take a closer look at this today. Let's get right into it. Actually, those of you who have been watching my videos regularly probably already know this. The UAE has carried out several airstrikes against Iran in the past. I've said this in my videos before, but without clear evidence back then, things always ended with some uncertainty. A Wall Street Journal report last month confirmed the UAE secretly launched airstrikes on Iran's oil refineries. The report states the UAE attacked Iran's oil refineries on Lavan Island in the Persian Gulf on April 8th, around when President Trump announced a 2-week ceasefire with Iran. The UAE's attack caused a large-scale fire at the refinery. As a result, it is said that the refinery's operational capacity was significantly crippled. At the time, Iran only announced that it had been attacked by an enemy. Afterwards, Iran retaliated by launching missile and drone attacks against the UAE. According to a report from the previous month by the Wall Street Journal, when the UAE launched airstrikes against Iran at that time, the United States was not displeased with these airstrikes and actually welcomed the UAE's participation in the conflict. Of course, the UAE neither confirmed nor denied these attacks and simply avoided taking a clear stance. They simply restated their stance, reserving the right to respond to hostile acts militarily or otherwise. In reality, the UAE had no option but to attack Iran. One of the countries that suffered the most damage in this Middle East war is the UAE. The UAE has been attacked by more than 2,800 missiles and drones so far. Of course, a significant portion of them were intercepted. Consequently, the UAE's ambitions to be a country focused on finance, tourism, and specialized industries have been crushed. Suddenly, as the UAE became a country with geopolitical risks, many wealthy people and business people began to leave. Until now, Dubai had a strong image as a safe city, far from Middle Eastern conflicts. That's because there was a belief that Dubai was safe, even if wars broke out in neighboring countries. But this time, it was different. In reality, missiles and drones flew in, and even the financial center was attacked. Investors now have to reassess geopolitical risks. Given the UAE's major losses, it seems natural, it may be understandable that they attacked Iran. This is a crucial point. The key point is that trust in the UAE is starting to erode. Many people think financial markets are mainly about money and investment. The core factor that drives actual financial centers is trust. People and companies need to believe that the region is safe for money to flow in, for businesses to enter, and for wealthy individuals to move their assets there. With the recent Middle East war, the UAE is now seen for the first time as a region at risk of war. In fact, within the UAE, Dubai has long been a very unique city. Although it's in the Middle East, Dubai has acted differently from other countries in the region. Even during wars and political unrest nearby, it maintained a stable image. Wealthy people from Europe, Russia, China, and India brought their money here, and global financial and asset management firms used Dubai as their Middle Eastern hub. The tax burden was low and public safety stable before, but now it's different. Missiles and drones have struck, and areas near the financial center were attacked. As attacks near Burj Khalifa were contained and flights were disrupted, people started to think for the first time that Dubai might not be safe. This is an extremely critical change for Dubai. Financial capital is highly risk sensitive. Unlike factories that can handle some risk, financial assets cannot. When war risk rises, capital quickly shifts to safer areas. So recently, some wealthy individuals and companies have started diversifying their assets into other financial centers like Singapore or London. The issue is that once this perception forms, it doesn't fade easily. Even if the war ends, investors are likely to consider the Iran risk, the Strait of Hormuz crisis, and the overall Middle East tensions when looking at Dubai in the future. What's shaking now isn't just buildings or tourist numbers, it's Dubai's carefully built image as a safe global financial hub that's being shaken. That's why the UAE needs to get out of this war threat as soon as possible. Also, the Gulf countries are in a situation where they want the war to continue. In this situation, there's a strong atmosphere of not wanting to stop the war. In particular, it's reported that the UAE is very wary of a ceasefire happening too hastily. The reason is very practical. If the war ends in the current situation, there's a high possibility that real influence and control over the Strait of Hormuz will tilt further toward Iran. The Strait of Hormuz is like a lifeline for the Gulf countries. Oil-producing countries such as Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, and Qatar export crude oil and LNG through this strait, while much of the region's food, consumer goods, and industrial materials also arrive via this route. However, if Iran secures military superiority near the strait or continues to exert influence, the Gulf countries will have to operate all maritime logistics while constantly having to worry about Iran's reaction. Iran can still threaten merchant ships, launch drones, and highlight route dangers, demonstrating its power to disrupt the shipping market. Recently, ship insurance premiums have surged, causing some shipping companies to change routes. Gulf countries view this as a very dangerous sign, because there is a scenario where the war ends, but only Iran's influence grows stronger, especially for the UAE. Tourism, finance, and logistics industries make up a very large share of its economy. Dubai's ports and airports are major logistics hubs in the Middle East. If Iran pressures the Strait of Hormuz, logistics costs, insurance premiums, and investment risks will likely keep rising. If that happens, Dubai's competitiveness itself could be shaken. That's why analysts say that Gulf countries now consider weakening Iran's power to be more important than the ceasefire itself. If the war ends while Iran maintains its current level of military pressure, the entire Gulf region may have to live under Iran's threat for years to come. Because of this, there are ongoing reports that the UAE and some Gulf countries want stronger action from the United States and Israel. In that situation, the United States is showing signs of possibly taking military action again. President Trump originally wanted to wrap things up at a high level before his visit to China. But because the differences in opinion between the United States and Iran remain large, the peace negotiations are at risk of falling apart, and there is a possibility that military action against Iran could resume. When President Trump met with reporters on May 11 and was asked about the ceasefire situation with Iran, he said it was unbelievably weak and in the weakest state. He remarked that the ceasefire is on life support, like a patient with only a 1% chance according to a doctor. And President Trump strongly criticized Iran's actions, calling the peace proposal put forward by Iran garbage. Meanwhile, according to Fox News, President Trump reportedly said that this time, the US military's escorting of ships in the Strait of Hormuz would be a small part of a larger military operation, although the final decision has not yet been made. He's increasing pressure on Iran by suggesting restarting military operations. Currently, US and Iran negotiations remain deadlocked, with neither side willing to back down. Both are essentially playing a game of chicken. The longer this standoff lasts, the damage spreads quickly beyond the Middle East. As attacks on the Strait of Hormuz and ongoing tensions continue, oil and natural gas importers like India are feeling a direct impact. India currently imports about 90% of the oil and natural gas it needs from overseas. 1/3 comes from Gulf countries, but as the Strait of Hormuz grows unstable, the energy supply is becoming uncertain. In the market, there are concerns that if international oil prices remain above $87 per barrel until the end of this year, India's current account deficit could rise to about 2% of GDP. It could almost double from last year. Financial markets are also being rattled. Recently, over 30 trillion won reportedly left the Indian stock market. This is reportedly the largest monthly amount ever. Foreign investors are withdrawing funds due to unease. The Indian government is trying to stabilize the exchange rate and market, but the situation remains tough. Not only is money leaving, but there are also signs of energy shortages. In some areas, restaurants have had to close because fuel supplies have been disrupted. The government has even asked citizens to reduce unnecessary gas usage. It's more than rising energy prices. The real economy is now unstable. South Korea is holding up fairly well due to stockpiles and some supply chain management. If countries worldwide begin to falter, South Korea's safety can't be guaranteed either. Because the global economy is interconnected, when one country is severely impacted, others are likely affected in a chain reaction. That's the reality. There are ongoing predictions that the aftermath of the war in the Middle East could sweep across the entire world. The Hormuz Strait is still under blockade, and there are no signs that it will be lifted anytime soon.